The 1990s were supposed to be easy to predict. Big stars made big hits, indie films barely made any money, and studios played it totally safe. But the movies that really made money, the massive box office hits, came from nowhere. Tiny budgets, unknown actors, scripts every executive passed on. The Sixth Sense made Bruce Willis $100 million, and the studio still calls it their worst mistake ever. Universal wanted nothing to do with American Pie. These 10 movies didn't just succeed, they straight up embarrassed Hollywood. The Full Monty is about a bunch of unemployed steelworkers who decide to become strippers, but here's the catch: they promise to go all the way, completely naked. Simple idea, hilarious execution. Great cast: Robert Carlyle, Tom Wilkinson, Mark Addy, all perfect. It was supposed to be this small indie comedy, but ended up making $257 million worldwide, literally over 70 times its tiny budget. Fox Searchlight grabbed the US rights for just $3 million, and they alone made over $100 million from it. Here's the messed up part, though. Because of some Hollywood accounting magic, Fox claimed it lost money. The screenwriter never got his bonus, and later said, "If making $250 million isn't profit, I'd hate to see what success looks like." Speed had a simple setup. Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock on a bus that'll explode if it slows under 50 miles per hour. Reeves was already known for action. Bullock had done some movies, but this was the film that really made her a star. Everything clicked. Dennis Hopper's villain, Jeff Daniels, the non-stop action scenes, Bullock and Reeves' chemistry, all perfect. They spent $30 million making it, and it earned $350 million globally, more than 10 times the budget. The script sat at Paramount totally unread for years. When Fox finally got it, they slashed the budget halfway through production. To save money, the crew built miniatures and cardboard dioramas of the LA freeway scenes. Audiences didn't notice a thing. Fox got filthy rich, but those miniature makers, they didn't even get credited. Bobby and Peter Farrelly had a huge hit with Dumb and Dumber in 1994, but this one was even bigger. Ben Stiller is this awkward guy obsessed with Mary, Cameron Diaz, the girl he's loved since high school. It's hilarious, crude, totally ridiculous, and exactly what audiences wanted. Made for $23 million, it earned about $370 million worldwide, over 16 times the budget. Diaz became an instant A-lister. Stiller proved he could lead comedies. But 3 weeks before filming, Fox almost canceled the whole thing because test audiences, especially women, found the idea too vulgar. Bobby and Peter had their budget cut drastically, forcing them to film real motels instead of sets and grab local people as extras instead of hiring actors. This budget-slashed version ended up making over $250 million. In 1999, there was no bigger movie twist than The Sixth Sense. M. Night Shyamalan wrote and directed it. Bruce Willis is a child psychologist trying to help a kid who famously says he can see dead people. Word of mouth was massive, everyone talked about it, and Willis was already a star, so marketing was easy. It made nearly $675 million globally. That's about 17 times what it cost. The movie was huge. Shyamalan became famous overnight. Osment and Toni Collette got Oscar nominations, and Willis made out big time. How big? Willis took $14 million up front, but also got a 17% cut of the profits. So when all was said and done, he took home $100 million. Disney called it the worst deal we've ever signed and vowed never to repeat that mistake. Shyamalan himself got $20 million from the film, and Disney executives are still salty about that one today. Jim Carrey pretty much owned 1994. Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask all hit theaters in 1 year, grossing over $700 million combined. The Mask was the biggest hit of them all. Carrey plays a shy banker who finds a magical mask turning him into this wild, cartoonish superhero. Cameron Diaz made her film debut here, and she's great too. They spent only $23 million making it, ended up with over $350 million worldwide. That's over 15 times the budget. The New Line studio initially wanted a cheap horror film based on a small, unknown comic. But Carey changed everything. When New Line signed Carey, he'd only made $350,000 for Ace Ventura, so they locked him in at the same cheap rate. But Ace Ventura came out first and turned Carey into a huge star overnight. Problem was, Carey was stuck at that tiny salary for The Mask and couldn't renegotiate. So by the end of filming, the dog who played Milo actually made more money from merchandising than Carey did from acting. Sex comedies were huge in the late 70s and 80s, stuff like Porky's or Animal House. But American Pie totally rebooted that genre for the 90s. Story's pretty simple. A group of high school guys trying to lose their virginity before graduation and failing spectacularly at it. The cast was loaded with young, mostly unknown actors at the time. Jason Biggs, Allison Hannigan, Shannon Elizabeth, Sean William Scott basically launched all their careers. Universal originally shopped the script around Hollywood. Literally every major studio said no. Eventually, indie company Summit took a chance, but only on one condition: there had to be full frontal nudity. Later, they shot that now famous pie scene during reshoots. Wasn't even in the original movie. That one scene convinced Universal to buy the movie back, and suddenly this $11 million teen comedy made over $235 million, more than 20 times its original budget, and spawned a billion-dollar franchise. It changed teen comedies forever. By 1990, Richard Gere was already a huge star. Julia Roberts? Not yet. But Pretty Woman changed everything for her. Roberts plays Vivian, a prostitute Gere picks up while on a business trip to LA. He hires her for the whole week, they start hanging out, develop a relationship. Obviously, things get complicated quickly. Roberts and Gere had amazing chemistry. Movie exploded at the box office. Over $460 million on just a $14 million budget. That's about 33 times its budget, becoming the fifth highest grossing movie of all time back then. Roberts even got an Oscar nomination. Crazy thing, though, the original script was totally different. Dark, gritty, and called 3000. It actually ended with Roberts' character overdosing on drugs. Disney executives freaked out when they saw what they'd bought, forced a complete rewrite mid-shoot into the sweet romantic comedy we all know today. Julia Roberts only made $300,000 from it and filmed the new ending not even knowing what they'd use. And the thing is, movie made nearly $500 million, but the original writer didn't get a penny from that huge sanitized hit. Another little British movie, another massive hit. Richard Curtis is basically the king of British rom-coms, and Four Weddings and a Funeral was the movie that made him famous. Hugh Grant stars as Charles, a guy who keeps screwing up relationships. Andy McDowell plays Carey, an American he meets at a wedding, and the movie tracks them through 4 weddings and 1 funeral. Studio almost shelved the whole thing after test audiences said Hugh Grant had no charisma. They literally only decided on a wide release after people cracked up at Rowan Atkinson's pre-scene in one of the final test screenings. Good call. This little $4 million British movie made over $245 million, more than 60 times its budget, became the highest-grossing British film ever at the time, got nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, and turned Hugh Grant into a worldwide star overnight. Kevin Smith literally maxed out 10 credit cards, spent about 27 grand total, to make this little black and white comedy about 2 friends working dead-end retail jobs. Shot it after hours at the convenience store where Smith actually worked, sold off his comic book collection, slept on friends' couches, the whole deal. When Clerks got accepted into Sundance, Miramax bought it immediately for just under $250,000. Movie ended up making $4.4 million total. That's more than 160 times its tiny budget, and became a huge VHS hit with a massive cult following. Crazy twist, Smith barely saw any money from that initial run. Harvey Weinstein pocketed a 7-figure payday. Still, Smith's little personal project completely changed his life, launched his entire career, and created one of the most iconic indie films of the 90s. And finally, at number 1, we got the most successful independent horror film of all time, Three film students head into the woods looking for the legendary Blair Witch, and obviously things don't end well. It basically invented the modern found footage horror genre. But the real genius here was the marketing campaign. Artisan Entertainment spent $25 million, way more than the actual film cost, to make everyone think it was real. They faked missing person posters, fake documentaries, even fake police reports sent to film festivals. Over half the audience early on actually thought they'd watched real footage. It paid off. This tiny $60,000 horror movie made almost $250 million worldwide, over 4,000 times its budget. Pretty much unheard of. Became one of the scariest, most influential horror films ever, and basically created the first real viral marketing hoax of the internet era.